Are you guilty of taking actions that prevent you from achieving your goals? Or you just find yourself doing something you'd rather not be doing at a particular time? Well, I'll recommend you listen to today's episode carefully to help you with that. Because in today's episode, we talk about what this behavior is, what it can show up as, why we do it, and also how to stop. So like I said, listen carefully and feed your... Welcome to Healthy Minds Talk, a podcast created to help you grow, bring awareness to mental health, and also remind you that it's not all in your head. There's hope, even when your brain tells you there isn't. I'm Praise Victor, and I remain your host on this show. Most times, we're not aware of the fact that we actually sabotage ourselves, from our relationships to job performance, friendships, and even to our everyday interactions. Self-sabotage can show up as perfectionism, mindless distractions from achieving your goals like binge-watching TV when you know that you should be doing something else, overeating junk food when you plan to stay on a healthy diet, mindlessly scrolling on social media, and so many other unconscious self-destructive actions that we take. Even overspending is actually a very common form of self-sabotage. You know that you don't need that product, but then you still buy it. Why? Because you feel like you have lots of money in your hand and maybe you will need it later, but you actually know that you don't need it. But you still end up buying the product anyways, and then when you're broke, you start regretting that you ever spent your money on that stuff. I know that you totally relate to that because I've also done it before. But then those are just common forms of self-sabotage. And to just make it clear, to clarify it, self-sabotage involves any action or behavior that we take or exhibit that prevents us from achieving our goals in different spheres of life. So yes, we are all guilty of sabotaging ourselves even when we don't mean to. And I'm using we because I also unconsciously sabotage. I've sabotaged my past relationships and I've recently caught myself sabotaging again. But it's not my relationships this time, it's my job performance. So I created this episode for me and also for everyone else that is listening. And there are so many signs of self-sabotage, but I'll just list a few here that I feel are very common. Number one is you keep dating people that you know aren't right for you. You know that this person is not right for you, yet you still go ahead and date them. Why? Because you just have this familiar feeling and it's just this weird, unhealthy pattern. Anyways, I'm going to get right into it in today's episode. So let me just list out the signs of self-sabotage for you. You constantly bring yourself down, you compare yourself to others, you exhibit risky behavior like overspending, gambling, overdrinking, substance abuse without thinking of the consequences. You make excuses and you're not accountable to yourself and even to others. You create conflict in friendships and romantic relationships. You don't push past your limits, and so you continually set goals that you know are very low and easy for you to achieve because you don't want to step outside of your comfort zone, and you constantly seek approval from others. Those are various signs of self-sabotage. And even though we have the common signs of sabotage, we also have different forms in which we sabotage ourselves, like procrastination. If procrastination was a person, that would be me, and I'm not proud to say this, okay? Procrastination is a very, very terrible behavior. It's actually the worst habit that I've been struggling with recently, especially when it comes to this podcast. When I started this podcast, I used to record a week ahead, but then all of a sudden I realized that I stopped doing that because a few things came up one week and then I just stopped abruptly. And now I record 2 or 3 a.m. on Monday morning just before it releases by 8 a.m. Let's not forget that I also have to edit and come up with the show notes, and it's always so difficult around that time of the morning. Yet I found myself in this situation 2 different times, and so far it's been awfully exhausting. But anyways, to help myself with that, I started reading this book, Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy, and the tips there have been helping with procrastination, so you might want to check it out. So yeah, you've probably been like in a different situation where you think you have more time before the deadline to do stuff, and then you wait till the 11th hour before doing it. Procrastination is self-sabotage in disguise. It keeps us from achieving our goals, and then at the end of the day we start feeling guilty for not doing our tasks earlier. So yeah, keep listening to the end of this episode so you get a few tips that are currently helping me and can also help you with procrastination. Another form of self-sabotage is self-criticism, perfectionism, wanting to be in control all the time, avoidance, people pleasing. I think we've talked about people pleasing on this podcast before. And imposter syndrome. And basically, imposter syndrome is just you feeling like you don't know what everyone says you're good at. I mean, you feel like everyone says you're good at this stuff, but you're scared that one day they will just come up and realize that you're a fraud because you're not so confident in what you do. So basically, that's just like an intro to imposter syndrome. And perfectionism, I saw this quote somewhere that said that striving for perfection is preventing you from achieving your best. And man, where's the lie in that? I'm not against you putting your best in whatever project you do, but then when you set way too high standards that even you know are impossible to achieve, you're the only person standing in your way. This clinical psychologist, Alice Boyce, said it in the best way that perfectionism is often driven by striving for excellence, but it can be self-sabotaging if it leads to suboptimal behavior like continuing habits beyond their usefulness, over-delivering when you don't have to, or overthinking every decision that you make. Perfectionists never think that their best is enough, and they majorly see stuff in black or white. It's either you're excellent or you fail. There's no in between. And you often strive for excellence, but perfection is not excellence. If you can't accept the mistakes you make, you are heading down a path of self-sabotage. So basically, those are just like the common forms in which we sabotage ourselves. We procrastinate, we criticize ourselves when we make mistakes, we just want to be excellent all the time and want everything to be perfect. This shows up as perfectionism. We want to be in control all the time. You want to know what happens next. You want to know what's going to happen now. All this stuff, you just sabotage yourself. Even people pleasing in relationships, friendships, you just end up sabotaging yourself. And there are different reasons why people sabotage. Everyone is different. Everyone has different reasons why they do stuff. But the common reasons are your childhood patterns, your fear of failure, your need for control, and also lack of self-worth or low self-esteem. Now, for childhood patterns, we all experienced life differently as kids, right? Even if you lived in the same house, the way you experienced life will be different from how your siblings experienced life. You all have different experiences in childhood, and if you experienced emotional abandonment as a child, that might show up as fear of emotional intimacy today. You suddenly unconsciously become emotionally unavailable and you push the people that love you away. I've done that so many times. And it's not something I'm proud of because it's a terrible toxic habit. But then I just said that. So if you also do that, you would feel less alone because you're not alone. And maybe during childhood, you witnessed a lot of conflict and tension at home. You may end up agreeing to things that you don't want to just because you want to avoid conflict. You probably think that if you get into conflict with others, you may lose your connection with them, so you just end up people pleasing. Childhood patterns have a way of there's just this link to every behavior. And if you have a childhood experience of not being seen and not having your feelings validated, you might start to believe that maybe there's something wrong with you. You start to think that no one will ever understand you and you are naturally disadvantaged. These experiences form patterns that you unconsciously, rather, when you have these traumatic experiences at childhood, they form into patterns that you unconsciously begin to believe and begin to follow because your brain has programmed that to be your coping mechanism on how to deal with life. So yes, your childhood experiences have a connection to how you respond in certain areas of your life today. But then I just want you to know that it wasn't your fault then, but then you can also do something about it now. Another reason why people, myself included, self-sabotage is because of fear of failure. Everybody is scared of failing. I know everyone is always like, failure is, failure is necessary for success, but then everybody doesn't want to fail. Nobody wants to fail. So, yeah, fear of failure can actually be a huge reason why you sabotage yourself. You might be scared of failing so much that you choose to not take any step further to progress. I know it might sound stupid to you, but maybe you've not studied yourself enough to figure out that that's what's truly happening. That's why you just, keep going in circles because you don't want to step outside of that because you're scared of failing. So you just keep doing the things that you know that success is assured, and you just keep doing that. But then you never step outside of the comfort zone and just try and check out the opportunities. And I get that fear is a normal response. It's a normal response to what's unfamiliar. But when you're too scared of going beyond what you know, you sabotage yourself because the truth is you can't know it all. So yes, your fear of failure is hugely contributing to your sabotaging behaviors. Another reason why we all sabotage is need for control, and this is also weirdly linked to your childhood. Maybe you had a childhood experience whereby you were forced to survive physically and emotionally in a chaotic environment, and now you feel angry and anxious when others don't follow you or when things aren't going your way. You just have this undying need to know what is going to happen next, and it just causes a lot of anxiety. That's the reason why most people are like struggling with anxiety is because they don't know what's going to happen next. And what I just want you to know is that you cannot know everything. There are certain things that are within your control, and there are certain things that are outside of your control. So you should try focusing more on what's within your control than what's outside your control. And the last reason here of why people self-sabotage is because of lack of self-worth or low self-esteem. When you have low self-esteem, you begin to think that self-love, self-validation, and also self-acceptance only come when you have high achievements. So you think that life is all about achievements and accolades. Basically, you just feel worthy mostly when you are successful. But you need to know that you are worthy of love regardless of whether you're successful or not. Your sense of self worth should not like be placed in your material achievements, should not even be placed in any achievement at all. Just know that you are worthy of love and your feelings are valid. So how do we stop self-sabotage? The first one I want you to do is to be aware. Unconscious self-sabotage is very common, and I've noticed this within myself because I've gotten to this stage where I'm like aware of certain habits that I do, even though they are not like healthy. Like when I'm supposed to be working and I just find myself back on Instagram scrolling through the reels. I mean, it's really crazy. It's like you're like, let me just check out this stuff on Instagram, and then before you know it, you're like in the reels section just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. So yes, unconscious self-sabotage is very common. So to know if you do sabotage yourself, you have to be aware and recognize those patterns and behaviors. Try to think of a particular time when you set a long-term goal but didn't take the necessary steps in achieving it. Ask yourself questions like, why did that happen? Was it because of my lack of motivation, or because I didn't believe that I could do it? Or was it because the goal had to take me out of my comfort zone where I have no control on what happens next? Whatever it is, your ability to recognize those self destructive behaviors will help you in knowing the next step to take in order to stop. And whether that's positive self talk, setting boundaries, journaling, and so many other steps that you can take to help yourself improve. To solve a problem, you have to first identify it before coming up with a solution, right? Well, the same thing applies here. You have to be aware of not only your behaviors but also the thoughts behind them. It's when you're self-aware you begin to ask yourself questions like, do I abandon myself and my needs in order to please others? What needs did I want during my childhood that were neglected and are like affecting me today? And what is stopping me from being the person that I want to be today? Answering these questions honestly can lead you to where next you need to take action. Now, the second thing I want you to do in order to help yourself stop sabotaging is know what you really want and take action. It's very important to be decisive about your goals, whether it's whatever it is that you want to achieve in a particular period of time. Be bold about it. If you're like in the business industry and you want to like make this particular number of sales within like maybe 1 month, be bold about it and just take steps and actions towards it. And even though you know what you want, there are just some people that you can know what you want, but then you're still like waiting for the right or perfect time to take action and just start. But if you're like that kind of person, you would wait for a very long time, because there's no other perfect time to start or take action than now. There's this Chinese proverb that says the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second time is now. So stop overthinking your goal and waiting for the perfect time to start working towards it. If you overanalyze everything, you will end up making excuses for yourself not to start. All that is required is for you to just take that one step. George Eliot said that it's never too late to be what you might have been. So start now. Focus on the step in front of you instead of the entire staircase. I mean, we spend a lot of time like worrying about the entire staircase, how we're going to do that and going to do that and get to that level and get to that level, instead of us to just focus on what's right in front of us, which is step one. That is the only thing that you should be focused on right now. Focus on the first step and take that first step. The first episode of this podcast was on how to start something new. So if you're struggling with taking the first step at this season of your life in whatever area, I'll recommend you to listen to that episode. Now, the third thing I want you to do to help yourself stop sabotaging is make small positive changes to leave your comfort zone. Emphasis on the small positive. We as humans, we're always attracted to what's familiar, even if it's unhealthy. When our brains are tired, we resort to old habits and ways of doing things, even if they never work well. This is why living toxic relationships might look very difficult, because we end up overvaluing what we've always known and undervaluing what's unfamiliar. But we cannot keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. If you keep staying in your comfort zone, you choose to remain ignorant of the opportunities that are outside of it. Leaving your comfort zone is scary because you're no longer in control. I get that. You're trying to do things that you've never done before. You're leaving your protective shell, and you might not even get it right the first time. But the most amazing thing is that you took that one step. You made that change in your daily routine. You bought that online course and started learning a new skill. You took that step to start praying and praising every day despite your feelings. You made that decision not to be in any relationship till you found yourself again. You booked that appointment to see a therapist, and so many other little things you do that matter and will also help you grow. Leaving your comfort zone doesn't have to be this huge thing that you do, which is why I said it earlier, that emphasis on the small positive changes. So do not let the fear of the unknown keep you frozen. Think of the best things that could happen with the decision you're about to make and go for it. And after you've gone for it, the next thing I want you to do is embrace failure, because failure is actually going to happen. Everyone makes mistakes, and I personally feel like mistakes are one of the best ways to grow, right? You fall, you learn, and you take a better, sturdier step. Imagine a baby, for instance, a baby that's just learning how to walk. He or she takes a few steps and then falls to the ground, right? They might cry. Definitely, I feel like they cry, but then they don't stay on the floor forever. They keep trying till they finally get the steps right. I know you're not a baby, okay? And I know that that example might have been totally unrelated to what I'm talking about, but just try applying that same mindset whenever you make a mistake. Mistakes happen. They might happen due to forces within your control or the forces outside of your control, but whenever they happen, be kind to yourself. Your inner critic can come up and start saying all this negative stuff to make you feel worse, but always replace self-critical thoughts with compassionate thoughts towards yourself. Repeating affirmations can help in shutting your inner critic up. So just learn how to detach your identity from your mistake, because just because you didn't do something right this one time, or maybe even multiple times, that doesn't mean that you're a failure for life. Today, I just want you to try to take a conscious step to accepting the fact that mistakes are an important part of the human learning experience. The fifth thing that I want you to do today is learn not to act on impulse. You might feel pressured to make a particular decision based on the feelings you have, but in order to not take any action without thoughts of the consequences, practice mindfulness. Mindfulness helps you to regulate your emotions and also separate your thoughts from reality. Being mindful helps to it enables you to be aware of the present moment, and in a state of mindfulness you acknowledge and accept your feelings without judgment. And now there are so many ways you can be mindful in order to prevent self-sabotage. You can be mindful while eating to know if you're eating majorly to satisfy your hunger or for emotional comfort. It's very important to be mindful of how you fuel your body with the nutrients that it needs. This helps you to prevent binge eating. You can also be mindful in your daily interactions. When you're mindful in your daily interactions, you tend to build relationships where you don't just assume about the person, but you also pay attention to how you feel when you relate with them, and how that is partly a reflection of you or your past. In situations like this, you don't just assume, but you learn to listen and respond in the right way to what others have to say, rather than reacting out of your emotions. And the last thing I want you to do is talk about it or go for therapy. Talking about your toxic patterns can help you be more aware and also help you feel less alone, because you never know, someone else beside you or close to you might also be sabotaging themselves and just have that same habit that you do. So yes, it can help you feel less alone, and you can also talk about it by going for therapy. Like I always say, therapy offers you a safe space to discuss about emotional problems and also learn healthy coping skills on how to deal with them. And for self-sabotage, there are different types of therapy that can help with that. There's the behavioral and motivational therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, that's CBT, mindfulness-based therapies, and also dialectical behavior therapy. This helps you to build skills that reduce impulsive behavior like self-harm, binge eating, over apologizing, and it also improves your thinking ability and helps you to reflect on thoughts before you act. A certified therapist can help you have a deeper understanding of why you sabotage the things you care about and also how to stop. Before I go today, I have a very short list of recommended books that can help with self-sabotage. If you love reading books like me, and you're just really interested and invested in improving yourself, you can get this book by Jenny Allen. The title is Get Out of Your Head, Stopping the Spiral of Negative Thoughts. Now, this is a Christian self-help book that helps you be self-aware and honest with yourself. This book involves the processes needed for emotional healing and also spiritual healing. The second book I have here is Stop Self-Sabotage: 6 Steps to Unlock Your True Motivation, Harness Your Willpower, and Get Out of Your Own Way by Judy Ho. Now, I've not read this book, so I don't really know much about it, but I'm pretty sure it's very helpful because when you just browse online on books to help stop self-sabotaging, this is the first book that would actually show up. And the last book I have here is by Joseph Burgo, and the title is Why Do I Do That? Psychological Defense Mechanisms and the Hidden Ways They Shape Our Lives. I really recommend this book if you're interested in the psychological aspects of why, just like I am. I love psychology, so I love reading psychological books, and this book helps you to learn more about your defense mechanisms and also psychotherapy strategies that can help you to stop sabotaging your life. You can get these books on Amazon, and that can be the one step that you need to get out of your comfort zone. So that's it for today's episode, guys. With love, I say thank you for being a faithful listener every week. And if you're a newbie on this podcast, I really hope that you catch up on all the episodes that you've missed. And I really hope that today's episode helped you to be aware of the unconscious self-sabotaging habits that you have, and you're also aware of the steps that you can take to stop that. And so just do well to subscribe on the podcasting platform that you're using to listen right now. Rate us on Spotify, and also follow me on Instagram at @thismylittleword_, and on Twitter at praise_hm. See you guys next week.